Hey there YouTube, this is Dave and we're going to be building a solution over a series of videos, and I hope you're going to appreciate each and every single one of these. Definitely come back as I build a solution using SharePoint, Microsoft Forms, as well as Power Automate. And we're going to make it a little bit more complex each time. Today we're going to be actually talking about one thing and one thing only. We're going to be talking about the creation of columns in a SharePoint site list or library. You take your choice. It's the behavior is exactly the same way, just like I did a short video as well as a video specifically on the creation of a simple list. Same concept, however, we're going to be talking about columns throughout this video. We're going to be shown as to why we want to do things a certain way, and then what the benefits are when you do those things the certain way. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I've created a list, and you'll see that in just a moment. Just for this occasion, we're going to be testing different theories and different ideas to show you what is the best way of going about creating a column in a list or a library. Okay, here we are in my list, so that means it's going to be tied directly to me, just like I taught you with Microsoft Forms. If you create a list in SharePoint, you want to make sure it's tied to either a Microsoft team or to a SharePoint site specifically. If you tie it to my lists, it's literally going to be the same thing. It's going to end up as a part of your OneDrive, which is, as I told you in the past, technically is a SharePoint site, but it is a heavily modified one to be your OneDrive, your personal drive. So that's in other videos. Please be sure to check those videos out. Reeling it back in, so I've created this column test list, and on that we can see the title, which comes with every list that is tied, and think of that as kind of the anchor stone for a field for that list. Then I have one with underscore, one with dash, one column with space, and one column camel case. There's strengths and weaknesses to each and every single one of those. It's something that you should know. And we're going to go through each and every single one of these. We're going to also show you what happens when you actually make changes to a column as well. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump into the list settings by clicking on the gear way up here at the top, and then hit list settings. Okay, here we are in list settings, and as you can see, as I stated earlier, we have title with underscore, with dash, and with space, and with camel case. Now, why the differences? Why did I go through all the trouble coming up with something like that? Well, here's the reason. Each one of these, when the column is created in the back end of SharePoint, so think kind of a SQL database, there's all kinds of auto magic happening there. I'm not going to get into the details because frankly I don't think I have enough time on YouTube. Let's just say Microsoft did a very good job at what they're doing, considering the fact that we have a lot of end users who are very creative and end up causing trouble. Just saying. Now that being said, as you can see, title with underscore and so forth and so on, each of these columns were created in a slightly different style, and we're going to kind of go on with that. The first thing I want to do is actually play with title. Okay, welcome to the title column. It's right here. Let's go and dive right into that. As you would expect, this is what you see anytime you create a list or a column or a library column. They're one and the same. Lists and libraries are just very different, but they're the same thing. They're a list. Documents just happen to have files attached to them in such a way that they're actually used by a document library, whereas a attachment to a list is literally just that. It's an attachment. It's kind of one-off. The one big difference between a library and a list attachment, the list attachment is not read by the crawler at all. The name of it might be because that is part of the field of the attachments, but that's the only thing it's going to see. So if you're looking for um, a tree pulp that happens to be in an attachment in a list, you're not going to find it if it's not in the title of that document. So something to keep in mind when you're using a choice between a library or a list attachment. And so you want to keep that, like at the top and foremost of your mind. All right, we're dialing it back because you guys know I love bunny trails. Chasing shiny squirrels is something I do constantly. Anyways, back to title. As you can see, we can change the name of title to anything we want. And is that going to make any changes to it? So let's go ahead and find out, shall we? First thing that we're going to do is we're going to change this to let's go with tree roots, or let's go with tree roots. Roots. I can spell, just not today apparently. And then what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and hit OK. Okay, we have two URLs and they look exactly identical. The first URL is copied before we actually change the name to title. The second URL is after we change the name to from title to, and I already forgot because that's how I roll, tree roots. You can see that nothing has changed. Now this is kind of messy, and as I add different URLs to this is going to get ugly. Give me a chance. I'm going to actually clean this up a little bit. I'm going to remove from the beginning underscore layouts 15 because all of them are going to have that. So this is basically going to the field edit web page, ASPX page, and then this list, this whole thing, this list name is the name inside of it's actually a GUID for that specific list. It's not just the name because people can change the name of a list just like they can, and I've taught you how to do that from best practices. So a lot of times it's referred to by a GUID, not by the name itself, because it could change in because of that fact. Different areas pointing to this list could become broken otherwise, and so that is the way they're able to circumvent things breaking when names change. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. Give me 1 second. We'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and as you can see here, the field equals title is in both of the URLs. One when it was named title, and the second when I changed the name to tree roots. Why is that? There's actually several different areas behind the scenes that also kind of keep track of what the name of the column is. So you have the name that was created on the initial creation, that would be title in this case. Well, guess what? All of the different information captured in the background, it's all going to say title. This is title. The column, the column name is title. The field name is title. Yada yada yada, so forth and so on. It's going to remember all of that. And one of them, the one that we changed to tree roots, is just the visual cue of what that column name is. Visual meaning it doesn't actually change anything in the background. It's just for our purposes and our purposes alone, because what title is, one day becomes tree roots, the next day becomes, I don't know, bear scratching post the following. Whatever the case may be, you're going to want to know visually that it's fine, you can change it, but at the depths of SharePoint and those list and library columns, you do not have to worry. The name is going to be remembered however you name it initially. Remember how I said you want to be careful when you want name a list or a column a couple videos ago? There's a reason for that, because it's going to remember. In this case, title it's in there. It's like ragu spaghetti sauce. It's in there, and it's not going anywhere. That does not change once it was first created. So something to kind of keep in mind. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through each and every other column that I created for this particular list, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a good look at it and kind of understand what the behavior is when the column is created. Okay, so here we are, and we're going to talk about our column with underscore. The reason why we're going to do with underscore, because that's the second thing that's on the list, and let's face it, so I don't forget one of them. Yeah, the forgetter is working really well lately, y'all. But anyways, that be that being said, we're going to go with underscore. So there are different ways in different types of styles of behaviors. When I showed you how to create a list or a library, one of the things I said is why don't you can always use an underscore because it's not going to mess up the URL. That's fine, but we're talking about columns. Columns are different than lists and libraries. They have different behaviors. They work differently in the behind the scenes inside of SharePoint. We're talking about SQL Server. We're talking about a lot of other things. There's a lot of constraints, a lot of behaviors that end up getting modified that we don't know about and we don't need to know about. But at the same time, I want you to understand what the differences is so that when you do decide to make your choice of which type of style you create your columns, you know what you're getting yourself into when you create those columns. With the underscore, I would say if I had to rate these, so with underscore, with dash, with space, and camel case, from 1 to 4, this is number 2 on the list of the best practices. Number 1 is the best practice. We'll get to number 1 later, but right now I would say, and you're going to understand visually when I show you what is going on. So in this case, with underscore is the number 2 as far as best practice. It's not the most awesome, but it's tolerable and it's not too bad in its own right. And you'll see why. And so what we have here, column with an underscore, you can see the field name it has with %5f underscore. The %5f is, I think, I could be wrong, I could be talking out of pocket here, but last time I checked, it's the hexadecimal for the ASCII symbol, the underscore. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. Don't worry about it. Like for example, you guys definitely see a lot of times in your URLs %20. Well, %20 is the space. And that's the reason why I showed you when we were creating a list or a library, don't put a space, put an underscore there because of the fact that then instead of using up 3 slots in your URL, which you know now is actually limited to 256 characters. Instead of using 3 because it's a space, it only uses the underscore, which is a 1. So you have 2 extra characters that you can use on the other end. Well, similar here, but not quite. So yeah, when you're creating a column, you can see here the %5f is the underscore. Not too bad. It's 3 characters. It's specific to, it's not so much part of the URL because the only time it's used in a URL is when it's actually as a variable. And in this case, it is not a variable, so therefore it's a non-issue because it does not add to that 256 characters. Now, with that being said, with underscore, you can see it's not as easy to read, but it's a lot more tolerable than what we're going to see next. So let's jump right into the next one. The second column that we're going to take a look at as far as naming convention is concerned is with dash. With dash. So let's go back to our handy dandy notepad and let's take a look at that one. Okay, I cleaned it up for us. So let's take a look at column named with a dash. As you can see, the field is with %5f x002d %5f dash. Yeah, that's a mouthful. So not only, yeah, I'm not. Let's not even get into it. It's just it's an abomination. It's a nightmare. So when you use the dash or the minus sign, for those of you who rather do it that way, the long and the short of it is, yeah, it's a mess. It truly is a mess. You've got all those characters. It's not easy to read, and trust me, when we start going into areas such as Power Automate, any of the Power Platform actually, Power Apps, Power BI, and you have to use that, it's not easy to remember. It doesn't roll off the fingertips. I'm telling you right now, it's a nightmare. I'm glad it's close to Halloween because at least, we're in the right month for the nightmare. But don't worry. Guess what? This is ranked at. Out of the 4, this is only ranked number 3. Out of the last 2, we got 1 and 4 still remaining. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. Okay, here we are. Back to our list again with dash. Was interesting. Let's take a look with space. With space is going to be probably eye-opening for you, and one of the reasons why I constantly say let's not use that if we're going to use best practice. So let's go ahead and take a jump right into it, shall we? Here we are. As you can see, I've already cleaned it up so we can actually read it. It's nice. So ampersand field equals with %5f x0020 %5f, and there's the space. What happened? It's just as bad as the one prior. So whether it's a dash or a space, it's truly a nightmare. The only difference is the dash is signified by the x002d. So I'm not even sure that if is that a decimal number. I don't know. I don't know. It's nasty. I don't like it. It makes me want to cry. I'm gonna have to go get my crying towel after this. I swear. Joking aside, you can see the same thing, but here's that 0020. You kind of remember the %20 in the URLs. Well, that's the only way I can kind of remember that the x0020 %5. Yeah, it's a thing. It truly is a thing. But whatever the case may be, forget about it. Needless to say, if you're kind of guessing, this is number 4. This is the bottom of the pack. Preferably not to use spaces, but dashes are along there. I think they're tied. Just holding these side by each, they're tied for last place. With a dash and with a space, do not use these if you're going to use this for something like Power Platform, any of the Power Platform options, because of the fact it's going to become a nightmare. It's going to be really hard to deal with when you're trying to call these columns. So my recommendation is to stay away from those unless you're not going to use a Power Platform. You know you're not going to use a Power Platform, then have at it. Use your spaces, use your dashes. It's okay because you're not going to run into the issues that we during this series are going to end up with. Now understand this is just a test list. I'll be actually making a real list for our next video so that we can start with a nicely groomed list. I'll walk you through those steps. Not the steps, I would say just walk you through the list to show you what I did and show the correlation between that and a Microsoft form to give you an idea of what is possible, and then we'll take it from there. All right, reeling it back in. Love those shiny squirrels, I'm telling you. Anyways, reeling it back in so you can see the column named with the space and the dash are not the way to go if you're going to use a much more complex solutions that is using SharePoint as a backend or SharePoint list as a backend. Something to keep in mind. And lastly, but certainly not least, is camel case. And if you've been keeping track of the top four, or the only four in this case, camel case is number one. And let's take a look at to the reason why. Okay, as we can see here with our handy dandy notepad, the last line, column named camel case, you can see right there that is actually doing okay. There are no percent 5Fs or any hexadecimal number. There's no X00 number. So we're in really good shape. Now there's always a give and take to everything. I don't think I'm going to cover it in this video. Camel case is really, really good. However, at the same time, when you do a search and you're looking for the column, you're going to have to remember, even if you change it so that after we're done, I could do this and put a space in between there, not for the URL, but I'm specifically meaning in the case of changing the name of the column. So, because it's been created, I use camel case, it's fine. However, I can now put the space in because it's not actually going to change the name of the field. That is something that you can certainly do. Just understand that it's not going to cause any problem or any issues. But if you're doing a search against the column or configuring specialized search results using the different things that are available to you and maximizing your search prowess, then you're going to have to remember or understand that you're going to have to do the entire spelling camel case all as one word whenever you refer to it, because that's something that is going to be locked in. It's locked in. So there's always a give and take, but at the end of the day, if you need more than one word to describe a column or in a list or a library, then please by all means use camel case. This, in my opinion and in my experience, do not try to write War and Peace as a column title. I've seen people having an entire sentence as a column name. I don't recommend that. And there are some things that we may end up coming across during our continuation of creating videos that will actually cause that to happen. I'm going to point those out when they come. I am not telling you about them right now. Let's just say trying to rewrite War and Peace as a column title is not a good idea in every sense of the word. Another thing, I just remembered something else. When you create a column name, do not use the asterisk. That's the star. Whatever word you call that star, the multiplication symbol, where it is something here. Actually, let me type it. Let me go here, and then let's go and type a bunch of these. This symbol right here, that symbol right there, do not, under any circumstance, use that in a column name. In a SQL database, that is a wildcard and will cause you misery like you wouldn't believe. It is a nightmare. It is not good. I do not recommend it ever. So please remember, do not do that. I actually have a blog post on my website. If you need to understand why, please take a look at that. I'll try to remember to leave a link in the description below. Yeah, not good. Very, very bad. So remember that. Let me get rid of those evil stars when it comes to column names. I do not want you to use them. I don't want you to look at this and go, hey, he's got a star in there. No, I do not have a star in here. Please do not do that. So just as a recap, one of the things that I recommend doing, if you can do a column name with a single word, that's going to be the best for obvious reasons. That way, you're not going to have to worry about camel case. You're not going to have to worry about all this other things added to it. It's nice and clean. However, if you need more than that as a visual cue, and that can always be the case, and so please understand there's always a good reason why to do something. As long as you understand the pros and the cons, then go right ahead and do it. But I would recommend either camel case or underscores, and then unless you're not planning on actually using the Power Platform at all for what you're building, I would stay away from dashes and from spaces. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the alert button, and let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. I appreciate it, and I hope you have an amazing day.